two art forms collide at the Scarfone Hartley Gallery in Tampa. Prolific graffiti artist Ales Bask Hostomsky and legendary comic book creator, artist, and writer Bob Layton team up for the gallery exhibition of an iconic superhero.
I've written and drawn about every comic book character imaginable in my 45 years in the business. It'd be easier for you to try to find what characters I haven't done. Most of all, I'm known for the reinvention of Iron Man. So when I heard that Marvel was going to kick off their entire cinematic universe with my version of that character, it was one of the most gratifying experiences of my life. In 2007, I was asked by Marvel Studios to come out and do the narrative for the DVDs. It occurred to me while I was out there that I had climbed every mountain, that I'd done everything in comics. Suddenly, the whole cinematic world opened up to me, and that just seemed like such an adventure and a chance to watch my characters breathe and talk and move. So I moved to Hollywood, and I learned the language and the customs of Hollywood. After about 8 or 9 years in Hollywood, I decided to move back to Florida. I really wanted to try to work outside the system, and at the same time I realized I was missing my grandchildren's childhood, and they lived here in Riverview, so I wanted some time with them. So I started my own production company. After I moved back here, I met Tyler Martin-Knowledge, the Tampa Bay Film Commissioner. Tyler kind of recruited me to help bring more attention and interest financially to making films and television in Florida. I've always contended that Florida is a wonderful place to film because of one, you have an amazing amount of talent here. You think of what comes out of Ringling College, a variety of topography here. We work together to promote film in Florida, lobby the State House in Tallahassee. I said the one thing I have learned in all my years in traveling around the world is everybody has a Marvel fan in their family. And so I said, I'm going to take a lot of free posters. Earlier this summer, Tyler came to me and said that he had approached Mayor Jane Castor about having an Iron Man Day and to celebrate what I've done and what I brought here to the city and to the state. So Mayor Jane Castor proclaimed August 4th Bob Layton Day. So I was just amazed at how this whole thing snowballed into this huge event with radio shows and television shows and signings and screenings of the movie. And when Commissioner Ken Hagan gave me this actual proclamation,
Ken, thank you so much.
It was like very, very touching. So Tyler asked me to come up to his office one day and to bring some of my artwork that we could display at the Scarfone Gallery. And when I got up there, I found out what his master plan was.
Tyler reached out to me and said he had a pretty special project that he wanted me to collaborate on or get my input, and that's all he said.
Another local artist who had worked and had a connection with Iron Man was Bask, who lives in St. Pete.
We're sitting at the table and introduced to the group, but I'm also learning that this is the project. It's to collaborate with Bob Layton.
Bask did all the graphics and the paintings in Iron Man 3, so we are actually Iron Brothers.
2012, I get a phone call. It was like, hey, Robert Downey Jr. wants your art in Iron Man 3. So immediately I was like,
we began collaborating on some ideas for paintings that he could do based on my work. Bask and I had similar backgrounds and similar problems that we had to deal with. I grew up in the Midwest, and it was a difficult childhood because my mother had to raise 5 of us alone. I learned to read from comics. I bugged my sister Sue to teach me how to read. I could tell what was happening in the stories because the pictures connected one panel to another, but I didn't know what they were saying, and I was so curious.
Growing up in the Czech Republic, it's we lived under a communist oppression, and it was pretty stifling. I'm always the outcast, and I've always looked towards art to kind of help me through a lot of those moments.
I found that comic books were an incredible escape for me.
Started looking towards art as a go-to form of joy and therapy and everything, distraction, whatever it might be. I didn't have that many friends growing up, so it was just kind of something that it's like created my own worlds, my own places where I can go, sources of entertainment, essentially.
Thank goodness for Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and all these other characters that kind of kept me going.
When I was drawing violent comic books or doing graffiti, none of that made sense to my parents, but they were like, we're going to go all in and encourage it.
Eventually, when I got into comics, I started my career at DC, and there I met David Michelinie, who was my writing partner. I convinced him to jump ship and go back to Marvel, and they offered us 3 books that were in danger of cancellation, and that's how they tried out new talent. We basically did a complete overhaul of the premise of Iron Man. And at that particular time, the Betty Ford Clinic had just opened up, and the people were talking openly about drug and alcoholism for the first time. We wanted to give Tony an internal struggle.
Demon in a Bottle, there is this real world grounded element of it, and yeah, it's about a guy who is dressed up in a metal costume and he's a billionaire and all this. Despite him having everything in the world that he wants, he still has this albatross around his neck that he just is weighing him down and having him self-destruct from the inside.
And it occurred to us that this would be an interesting villain for Tony to have to struggle with.
Anybody who's ever had a vice that they were struggling with or something internal, it's like the battle of self versus self is always the hardest.
I was struggling with alcoholism myself, 40-something years later, that it was a cry for help.
Going through my own struggles with various things, various substances, or drinking or partying too much as an adult, I got to truly appreciate how profound that was.
Demon in a Bottle was Robert Downey's one of the reasons why he signed up to do Iron Man.
Sometimes the message or what the artist is putting out there, things or thoughts or images that reflect a point in time in his life that he needs somebody to connect with that.
In order for a story to really resonate, the conflict has to come from within the characters themselves.
It's truly something that I connected with personally.
I saw a new way to kind of interpret the old Iron Man through Bask's imagination.
How you can turn like little commercial art drawings into fine art. That's amazing.
Jocelyn, the curator, brought all this together because she figured out a way to bring comic books and fine art together in the gallery in one showing. It was an amazing experience. It's something that I'm going to remember always. It was taking something old out of new to work.
You can see more of their work at boblayton.com and on Instagram at @KnownAsBask.